access the podcast of OA. Located deep within Sector 14845 and powered by the Emerald Light of Will, the podcast of OA is your guide to the Green Lantern universe. Hosted by Lantern Myron Rumsey, the podcast of OA begins now.
Hey, fellow Owens, welcome back to another episode of the podcast of OA. This is episode number 249. I am one of your co-hosts, Myron Rumsey. I am joined by my friend on the other end, Mr. Phil Bova. He's drinking a toast to Metropolis on his side of the world.
Right, there it is. About an hour south of us.
So how's things going?
Oh, good, man, good. School year got off to a good start, and it actually was smooth. It was smoother than most years because this is my 13th year in the district. So, and usually it's pretty rocky, but this time it was fine. I ignored the higher ups and did what I needed to do, so I knew I could get it done.
It's always a little crazy on my end of the world because we do IT support for 21 different school districts,
Right.
and it gets a little hairy this time of year. We get over 1,000 calls a day in the first week of school from people to our help desk. So it's crazy, but I've been doing it a long time. This is my 26th year. And so I'm kind of an old pro at this point.
I mean, yeah, it's like, you go back, it's like just another sense. You just know what to do.
Yeah. We've got a lot of newer employees, and for some of them it's their first rodeo, but you kind of lead by example and help them through it, and eventually they'll get to the same place that we are. So it's good. It's all good. I played in a pickleball tournament over the weekend. I sent you a picture of me. I came in third place, considering 3 or 4 weeks ago I was still walking with a boot on. Major accomplishment. I was the oldest guy in the top 5 players that made it to the finals. So I was pretty proud of myself to even make it that far. I didn't think I'd make the cut, let alone get a bronze. So that was cool. It was very cool.
There it is. You get the round of applause for that. And but people will know when they get to our age, man. I mean, it's something to be proud of. I mean, we don't move like we used to anymore.
No.
Everybody knows that when they get to this age.
I kept telling everybody I was partnering with is my brain moves faster than my lower body does. And
it's gonna be my undoing is what it is.
Oh yeah. I was telling people at work, and I mentioned to you earlier that I felt the thrill of victory, and now I feel the agony of defeat, D-knees, D-back, and everything else.
It's like hangovers, right? I mean, hangovers are the worst to get over when you get older. It's
Right,
terrible.
right.
Because it takes a week. Now I'm a bourbon drinker, and and I don't drink to get drunk, and I couldn't tell you the last time I had, but it was with my wife's family, and I woke up the next day, I was fine. I was a little groggy, but yeah, hangovers are just terrible to get over.
Your body changes and your mind still thinks you're the same age you've always been.
Yeah.
You still think you're a young person, even though you look in the mirror and full well you're not. But
Nope.
The mind does things, man. But
speaking of old people,
yeah. Speaking of old people, in Green Lantern news, there have been some Green Lanterns casting rumors. We're going to save it for its own segment because it's going to take us longer to talk about than just doing it in the news segment. So we'll cover that in a little while. But we have some things to talk about there and some opinions to share. But in terms of other Green Lantern news, I haven't really seen anything other than the Lanterns casting information that has been put out there. I shouldn't say information because it's not real information. It's a casting rumor by multiple sources, but whether that's one parroting, 2 parodying the original, who knows? It's crazy. James Gunn hasn't said anything about it one way or the other. So, by the time this episode comes out, it could be a completely different story, right? Because we're going to record it one day and go through an editing process, and then the product will come out on the other end of this, and who knows what will transpire in the coming days in between, if anything.
That's right.
Green Lantern on the panel, though, there have been a couple of things. Did you pick up the 0 Hour 30th anniversary special?
I picked it up and I flipped through it. That's about the most that I did.
I read it. It had Kyle. Obviously, he was the main focus. Guy makes an appearance, and of course, Parallax Hal Jordan is in it. That whole era, it was not a pleasant time for me as a fan. So I looked at my viewpoint of it is through different eyes than a lot of other fans will have. I'm not exactly sure what the point of the story of this anniversary special was because I didn't feel like the ending. I mean, we're going to spoil it just a little bit. So if you haven't read it and you're planning on it and you don't want to be spoiled, skip ahead about 45 seconds. But at the end of the book, Parallax shows back up when Kyle essentially goes into a pocket universe that a fragment of Parallax made, where he gets his reality, and that reality is crumbling. And in the end, when Kyle comes back to our universe, Parallax is freed. So Parallax is back out there somewhere. Where that goes and how that figures into DC All In, we don't know. It did say to be continued, so we'll see.
So, in other words, you can take the 30th anniversary special from an original event and try to shoehorn it into future use.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. I mean, it's I mean, it's comic books. I figure that's what they do. I mean, I remember the
Right.
0 hour event, right? And I remember reading it when it came out, and it left an impact back then. And see, this is why I'm glad I didn't read that through and through, because I didn't want that tarnished of what it had before.
It was again it was definitely a Kyle story. Kyle gets to I shouldn't say reenact. That doesn't right. He gets to relive some of the things that took place back then. It was interesting because it was written by Ron Mars and Dan Jurgens, and the artwork was interesting. They had Daryl Banks back, and I wish they had just had Daryl Banks do all of it because his section of the art looked great, and the Dan Jurgens stuff looked fine too. But some of the art and sections was for me, a little hard on the eyes. But I wish it had. I wish it had been Daryl Banks all the way through because Daryl Banks does a really good job.
To each their own, right?
That's right. That's right.
And we talked about that with art. I mean,
Yeah, it's subjective, but boy, for my eyes, it was a little difficult. And Hal and Carol showed up in Absolute Power #3. That issue was a good bridge between the last Green Lantern issue and the next Green Lantern issue because we left off with Hal on Themyscira with Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and the cache of villain weapons and the hero weapons that he brought with him from Amanda Waller's stockpile on Gamora. And this issue, Hal shows up where he is on Themyscira and he ends up getting sent on a mission with Wally, which is going to pick up in the next Green Lantern issue. So that was there. And then Carol showed up basically as a background character on the story that took place in a different part of things.
hey, how do you feel about these events being intertwined with current continuity? Because it's been a while since it's been that way, right? And now it seems like that's the way it's working now. And I think in a general sense, I feel like I'm kind of part of the inverse of the multiverse, if that makes sense. And if there's any scientists out there that can explain that one to me, that would be cool. But I mean, I feel like I'm in. Like I feel like, all right, well, this is going on. Okay, so Green Lantern's here. Oh, that makes sense because it's tied into absolute this and whatever event comes.
Are you in or are you all in?
Well, I mean, Darkseid is, and I've always been a Darkseid is person. So, but I don't want to see anything bad happen to Darkseid, but and nothing will because he's, you know, ever present. So it doesn't matter.
Right, right. I don't mind I think you and I have talked before where I felt like one of the things that has been missing from the DC universe is that sense of being a universe,
Right.
of this interconnectivity. And I
Yep.
don't mind it as long as something doesn't drastically happen in a book that isn't part of the regular series to those characters. I mean, let me use the Marvel Cinematic Universe as an example. I love the Guardians of the Galaxy, but if I didn't watch Avengers Endgame and the Avengers Infinity War movies, I wouldn't understand why there's a different Gamora when I get to Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Gotcha.
And
That makes sense.
that kind of stuff kind of irks me because I shouldn't be beholden to read or watch something that I may not be interested in just because there might be something important that happens to the characters I'm invested in. So there's
Right.
that part of it. But at the same time, like in this situation, I didn't think it was a problem at all. And I don't have a problem with the events spilling into the Green Lantern book because let's face it, it isn't big enough that it's going to be part of the main story. But there's certainly stuff that takes place that seems to be important to the larger story that wouldn't be given that tiny kind of page space in the Absolute Power series. So
Right.
for Jeremy Adams to build it into his story, again, it goes back to feeling like this is an organic universe, and what happens in one place matters somewhere else. So at the end of the day, I guess I'm okay with it. Do I feel that you needed to pick up Absolute Power #3 to know what's going on? No, I'm sure there will be a little bit of a blurb in the beginning of the new Green Lantern issue that will explain how Hal and Wally got on the bike. You know,
Right.
uh, and I don't know if you've seen the previews for that issue that's coming up, but it looks like it's gonna be a lot of fun.
The
I'm
cover looks
excited by it.
cool. The cover looks really awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm really excited about that. But this episode, we're going to talk Green Lantern casting news. I shouldn't say news, rumors, casting rumors about the Lantern show. And then you and I are going to talk about Green Lantern War Journal, the final 2 issues that wraps up that series. I'm excited to talk about that, I think.
Mhm.
So let's not even bother taking a pause because we haven't been talking that long. Let's jump right into the Lanterns casting stuff.
All right.
So the rumors that have come out is that the Hal Jordan role has been offered to Josh Brolin, and the other part of that rumor or rumors is that if he turns it down, the alternatives are apparently Chris Pine, Tom Oliphant, Matthew
Timothy.
McConaughey,
Timothy
Timothy.
Elephant.
It's
You're right.
Timothy. Thank you for correcting me, and Ewan McGregor. And reaction to the Josh Brolin thing was swift and angry by a lot of people, myself included. My reaction is not a positive one, and the reason being is Josh. All of these names, good actors, great actors, but Josh Brolin is 56 years old now. It doesn't start filming until 2025, which means he'll be 57. I am 59, and I don't want to see a Hal Jordan that is a contemporary of myself. How much storytelling do we leave on the table because we jump forward and make Hal a grizzled veteran? I think is a mistake, especially when you've got Superman being in his 30s. Now, yeah, Guy Gardner, Nathan Fillion, cast it old. Don't agree with that either. I don't know, Phil. Before I go off on a rant, I want to give you a chance to get your 2 cents in.
Well, I mean, I text you what I text you best. I'm like, it depends on what kind of universe he's trying to build here. Now, I mean, I've always been of the mindset that, Clark Kent, Bruce Wayne and all them were around the same age bracket. I won't say frame, but bracket, right? That's the
Mhm.
least. I mean, come on. And so with that, keeping that as your lens for filmmaking, I don't know. If you have it depends if John Stewart is going to be what the top Green Lantern, so to speak, and when the movies come out, right? Then that would mean that Hal Jordan's playing the veteran backup to groom said John Stewart, which kind of changes the narrative a little bit from the comic books greatly, right? I mean, it kind of flips it on its head. But I feel like that's what they're wanting to do. If they're not taking the Hal Jordan aspect seriously, right? You've read the backlash, and I don't gauge the internet, but I've read enough to know that it's like, I mean, everybody's of the same mindset. He's just too old to play the role, and it doesn't make sense why he would be offered that role. I mean, Timothy Oliphant. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's my man crush in life. I mean, Justified was my I mean, and he was cool in Star Wars. I don't, I don't want to see him carry a Hal Jordan role either, because again, he's in the older bracket, right? I'd rather see somebody that's cast around the current Superman. I think it would be better served that way because then you can even flesh it out, right? I mean, if you decide you're gonna, okay, well, if we don't want to use Hal Jordan as our main Green Lantern, I mean, there's other creative ways you can come up with by taking him off the table, right? In
Well,
in any events,
right. I don't understand why you only have to have one to begin with.
right,
I would rather see them be closer in age and be somewhat contemporaries of each other,
right.
rather than, I mean, people make the Die Hard analogy, and we've been making the Die Hard analogy for years, but that Hal is not Murtaugh, he's Riggs, and John Stewart is Murtaugh in terms of how seriously they take the job, not the age thing. They don't need to be that far apart in age to be a mentor or to be a veteran. I mean, how long do you have to be in something to be considered a veteran?
Well, I'll take it a step
30
further.
years?
why the F do you even have to have all this nonsense of having, okay, we want to make it Die Hardish or this is, if you're going to make a Green Lantern movie, if you're going to center it around the establishment of a Green Lantern Corps, then by all means, you use those younger characters to build your core upon. Because I mean, Hal Jordan being thrust into Oa, he, yeah, he may be the main Green Lantern, but he's not yet, and people don't know that yet, right?
Right, right.
Same with John Stewart, same with whoever you want to categorize as being the greatest Green Lantern. I don't care who it is. But my point
Does there
is,
need to be a greatest?
I mean, there doesn't need to be a greatest. So if you're going to create a Green Lantern Corps, why does there have to be, well, we're going to cast this guy as an older Hal to be a mentor to blah, blah, blah. Well, aren't the mentors, I mean, the Guardians? I mean, Kilowog. I mean, Kilowog groomed half the Corps. I mean, the list goes on and on to how many Corps members were integral to the creation of Hal Jordan or John Stewart, for that matter, or any of them.
Right.
So that's where my storytelling would hinge on. It would be that aspect. I don't give a crap about a Riggs Murtaugh dynamic. I mean, do people want to see that? I don't know. I didn't know that was a thing now, right? I didn't know that was some kind of
Right.
that we are going to theme it around. No. I'd rather see the creation of something that comes from the heart of which it was built. If you're going to do that, then that means you have to include Owen technology. You have to include alien lanterns. They predated what came to Earth.
Yeah.
Or, well, maybe.
I think you skipped so much great storytelling that you could have
Yeah. I mean,
by
yeah.
jumping that far ahead. And then there are the faction of people that are like, well, they're just doing this because they're going to make him parallax. Maybe. I don't know as if that's what they're thinking about at this point. I just think it's a mistake in that there's so much storytelling to be had. And why do something that the fan base is going to be diversified over?
I mean, he hasn't everything else he's responded to. He hasn't said anything about this, and that's the
No.
problem, right? Because
Right.
and I've been following that thread because he has been pretty proactive by coming out with different things. But this came out, and all of a sudden the fan backlash hasn't been as what he thought. And you know what? I mean, I mean, maybe he's taking that to heart, and maybe he should. I mean, because that's your barometer. You have to build your creation over, yeah, you want your vision, but you have to have a barometer of your fan sense to know you gotta get them in.
Well,
Marvel did that and they didn't
yeah.
even have a tactic.
And that brings me to another point of this whole thing. I mean, you get fans are never happy, the fan base is awful,
Mm,
blah blah blah
that's
blah.
crap.
Or this is the direction they want to go in. Well, I don't care if I know that's the direction they want to go in. I don't agree with that direction, and I'm voicing my concern because this property means more to me than the entire rest of the DC universe. Completely selfish on my part. I care more about how Green Lantern is executed than Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, any of it. All of it put together. I really don't care about how well they're executed. I hope it's good, but it doesn't affect me on a personal level like Green Lantern does. And um, there have been times when fans have got it wrong. I mean, you and I are old enough to remember the backlash to Michael Keaton's casting as Batman.
Yeah.
And these were the days before the internet was really a thing. I don't think the internet was even a thing at that point.
Everybody thought
Eh,
it was a joke.
Yeah, everybody thought it was like, what are you kidding? Mr. Mom is going to be Batman.
Yeah.
I had seen Michael Keaton in a movie called Clean and Sober, which is a purely dramatic role, and it turned out that was one of the things that Tim Burton saw that made him want to cast Michael Keaton. And so I had faith in it because I had seen that movie. If I didn't, I could see my perspective. But let me put this in a context of Green Lantern. In the 90s, there was going to be a Green Lantern movie. Do you remember this at all, Phil?
I think I vaguely remember it, but
Do you remember who was going to be?
it's kind of like the whole Nicolas Cage Superman, I want to forget thing.
This was going to be done by a writer from Saturday Night Live. It was going to star Jack Black as Green Lantern. And one of the gags was that Green Lantern makes a construct of a giant prophylactic to capture the bad guys in. It was going to be a straight up comedy.
It would have never let us live it down. We still don't live
Exactly.
down the original movie. It's still brought up.
And fans like myself spoke up in loud numbers, and it got that movie stopped. It never went anywhere. Jack Black was keen. He was interested in playing it. You go out and Google it. You'll find all kinds of articles about it. But the fans stood up and said, we don't want to see this. This is ridiculous. This is the same thing in my mind. Granted, it's not a comedy. Do I think Josh Brolin would do a bad job? No, I don't. But he's not the right guy. He's too old. Hal Jordan should not be in his mid to late 50s. Hal Jordan should be in his early to mid 40s. And Chris Pine, I could see Chris Pine. I mean, he was a fan cast character that people wanted for a while ago.
Yeah.
I could see Chris Pine. Would he be my first choice? No, I'd rather see him only be a few years older than Jon Stewart in my mind. And I'm not I'm an IT guy in upstate New York, right? So I'm not a Hollywood producer or any of those things, but in my mind, as a viewer and as a Green Lantern fan, I would want to see a Green Lantern Hal Jordan who's a few years into the Corps, has already built up a little bit of a reputation, and he ends up mentoring Jon Stewart because for some reason, pick your reason, there are 2 Green Lanterns per sector, and he gets tagged on with Jon Stewart, who takes the job of being a Green Lantern very seriously, and him up against and being partnered with a guy who doesn't take it quite as seriously is where your humor comes from. It doesn't need to be a grizzled veteran who's in the late stages of his career, near retirement age, mind you, and being this gruff. I mean, Hal Jordan is not a grizzled veteran.
No,
It doesn't
really
need to be
not.
that way. And
He's not portrayed that way in any writing
Yep.
or any depiction.
And for my fellow Green Lantern content creators, if you want to comment about it and you're positive about it, good for you. I'm not. I'm speaking my mind because I've been down this road, and if I don't say anything, it's just as good as rubber stamping it and saying that's okay with me, and it's not okay with me. So I have to say something.
Well, we listen to enough viewers that are like-minded like us. I mean, if for not for nothing, we'd get a lot more hate mail if people didn't like us, and we don't get that kind of stuff. I mean, and we're voicing our opinion about something that's you're more passionate about it than I could ever be, and it's okay for us to voice our opinion about it. And if it's any consolation, the internet is like-minded with what we're saying. I mean, they're voicing the same thing. It all just encompasses around the aspect of, why are we going this older route? And I'll even go further. Why do we care if it has, why does Josh Brolin have to be the old guy doing it? Why do we care about these actors when we can have somebody step in as a Hal Jordan role that doesn't need to be some big name actor to carry it? If the movie's done well, that will shine with the actor who's doing it well. It's the same thing with the new Superman. I guarantee you that Superman's going to blow people away. And just people aren't ready for it yet because it's change and people don't like change.
Chris Pratt wasn't much of anyone when he did Guardians of the Galaxy.
I mean, he came along from nowhere, and then all of a sudden, look at him now. I mean, they're all popular.
Yeah.
I mean, and to be quite honest with you, Robert Downey Jr. was what in and out of jail,
Right.
right?
Right.
I mean, come on. And then a guy comes along and he carries the Marvel universe on his. Give it time, people. But this is the kind of people they need to go for. Is those actors that on the cusp, that don't, they're not big roles. They don't something that'll catapult them in a different way.
Right.
And not only that, something they can build. I mean, put their passion into. Yeah, I'm into this. I'm ready to devote 10 years of my life into this acting role and not do anything else my entire time.
Right. And Josh Brolin being 56, is he going to have 10 years in the role?
Hell
No.
no.
No. So you've got some fans who are like, yeah, I want to see that. And the reason why they want to see that is because they want Hal pushed aside so that Jon Stewart can be center stage, or they want them to do parallax so they can bring Kyle Rayner in. That seems to be two of the louder voices that
Those
are
are your
all
camps,
gung
though,
ho. Yes,
right? Those are your camps.
exactly. Exactly. And
So
I get there's a whole generation of fans who grew up with Jon Stewart as the Green Lantern, but there's also multiple generations who've grown up with Hal Jordan as their Green Lantern, or there's a generation that grew up with Kyle Rayner as their Green Lantern.
imagine
One
being a
doesn't make any,
creative,
yeah.
and they're having to deal with that onslaught of the
Yeah,
people, man.
right. So I'm glad that it's a good quality actor pool, but if this is true, I don't know if I'm going to be excited to watch it. I mean, I never thought I would hear myself say something like that, but
Well, hold on. Don't let because we don't even know if this is true. Okay.
right,
So, right. So, I mean, and that's what I keep kind of going back to. It's like, well, hold on. Gunn is usually pretty vocal about about this kind of stuff, and he hasn't said anything about it yet. So, I mean, I want to wait and hear it from the horse's mouth and see if there's more to it. If I mean, if it's true, then I don't know what to tell you, man. We
Right,
got a
exactly.
long wait, right? Because now we're gonna have to wait and see how this it's gonna look.
Right. And we don't know exactly when it's gonna be out. I know they're supposed to start filming next year. If it does end up being true, again, will it diminish my enthusiasm? Yes, it will completely. But we have to see what happens factually. But I'm voicing my opinion right now. If those rumors are true, wrong direction, in my opinion.
Well, I will say this: if Josh Brolin does get a role, he should play Darkseid, because then who could say he played Thanos in Darkseid? My God,
Right.
I
Or
mean,
I could see him being Kilowog.
on or Kilowog, or the
Yeah.
voice of Kilowog, even. I mean, he's got a good voice for that kind of stuff. But
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
There's lots of things, but there's been lots of conversation about it. It's kind of been gotten quieted in the last number of days since this came out, and who knows when we'll hear actual facts. But we need to talk about it. It's Green Lantern related. How can we not? Correct.
Exactly, and it's always nice to hear Myron's opinion about something.
Opinion or rant or both, right?
It was what it was, and it's fun.
And again, not criticizing any of the actors. They're all great actors, but
No, it's just, I mean, it's like anything else, man. I mean, we want to see something done well and done right, and it just doesn't fit the cog. I mean, so far,
no.
everything I mean, for lack of a better word, whatever he's planning seems to be like it's hitting good notes with the people. I mean, nobody's railing too hard. Of course, he hasn't done anything yet, so you really can't rail hard until it's done, right?
You know how Jordan's most famous construct is a boxing glove, right? I
Right.
don't want on the Lantern show his most used construct to be a walker. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
That's what it would be too.
All right, man. Well, let's take a pause and come back, and we'll talk about Green Lantern War Journal number 11 and 12.
Listen up, Lanterns. It's time you took the oath with Green Lantern John Stewart. In brightest day, in blackest night, don't let the podcast of Oa escape your sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lantern's light.
All right, and we're back, and we're here to talk about Green Lantern War Journal issues 11 and 12. So this is the final two issues of the Philip Kennedy Johnson Montos series. Ben, I have to say, I've read every Green Lantern comic except for some of the Kyle Rayner era stuff. I've read them all. I think this has really been the best content for John Stewart amongst everything. Mosaic was good. I think this is a step up from Mosaic. I mean, Mosaic was a little trippy. I think this was great. I'm not sure how I feel about the ending. I think I'm still processing a little bit, but I thought this was a good outing for John, and I'm interested in seeing how this dovetails into the rest of the DC universe and such. Because I don't know, I've got some questions, but as we go on, we'll get into this. But what was your thoughts about the wrap up of this?
I'm sad. I mean, I liked Mosaic better. I mean, I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool. But this is the second John Stewart content I've read that I've liked, and enjoyed, and I'm not a huge fan of Stewart. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't hate putting everybody on a list and everything like that, because I mean, that gets redundant after a while, right? But he's just, I never connected with him like I have Hal and like Jessica Cruz and, my faves and stuff like that. And we all have that. But I do think Johnson told his story so well that it blew away what came prior to it. I mean, this was so well written and so fleshed out and smooth, right? I mean, the whole run was just smooth. I mean, it was good groundwork for where John's going to go in the future, and I'm glad this is going to be the stepstone for it and not what happened before.
Right.
The prior writer.
I admittedly found myself a little lost in the middle of the series, like losing a little enthusiasm, not so much for the Shirley Stewart side of the book, but for the John Stewart side of the book. And I felt in these last two issues, I kind of felt the same way. I was far more invested in what happened with Shirley than I am with what happens with John, which I
was too.
found unusual. So
I
you felt
was,
the same way? Good.
yeah, I was too. I mean, I mean, having lost, I lost my mom a couple years back, and oh God, going on 4 years now, and it's sad, and I felt for John in that kind of way because of what he was battling at the same time of everything he was going through, right? I mean, he's battling things on two different kind of fronts if you think about it, where he's at in the dark star of the fen, and then he's got this construct at home taking care of his mom that he's got to worry about and get home to her. But it was fulfilling. I'll say that. I mean, like I said, but I like Johnson's writing, so I knew 3 issues into this that it was going to be well written. Whether I liked it or not was a different story, but I knew it was going to be written well. And I'm glad that they handled John Stewart well. I mean, he set a good template for his character, especially with the depth of his mother connection and stuff,
Right.
I
Right.
really, it was a good draw.
I think I felt that more here than any other time in the past. And I know for me, it resonated as well on the mother front. I marked the 20th anniversary of losing my mother not too long ago. So I think that's and I think you feel the same way. You lose your parent and you kind of relive it through the book like this. And yeah, you wanted to see John get back and be able to say goodbye to his mother in a proper fashion. As somebody who didn't get to say goodbye to my mom, I wanted that for the character, even though he's not my favorite character, and I find him somewhat two-dimensional in my book. This did a lot to make him rise in my standings, essentially, as it were. The last 2 issues, I guess. I liked some of the stuff that went on. Some of the things that I didn't like so much was I did not like the ending. And I didn't like the fact that John just he doesn't feel like he had to overcome anything. You know what I mean? It was like he almost wasn't really challenged. The ending came too easy in my eyes. And I'm not sure we've got him now with a Green Lantern ring. He's still ascended, and now he's got the Dark Star ring. How do you take that character and put him back into a Green Lantern? The toothpaste is out of the tube, right? How do you get the toothpaste back in the tube at this point? And maybe we'll see that. Maybe we'll see that how that unfolds in the Green Lantern series as there's some more connective tissue bringing John back into the Green Lantern fold. But I just there was that, and I felt cheated. This is gonna sound wrong. I know it is. I felt cheated by Shirley Stewart becoming a part of the ring. I felt like that was a cheat in my mind.
Really?
Yeah, I just
Like a cheat how? Like,
that she
I mean,
didn't really die. She's basically has been being kept alive in his ring, essentially. It's the way I felt. And it's hard to say because we don't really know. But I felt like I wanted this. It's gonna sound like I wanted something bad for John, and I don't want it to sound that way, but I wanted John to get that closure with his mother, to get to say goodbye, and then we didn't really get that.
and also to say it like this, to understand loss on
Yeah,
that level
yeah,
anyway. I mean, there's a loss on that level, but there's also the hope that she's still alive, being kept in the ring. So, I mean, I don't know. That's kind of a false hope, but I don't know how those rings function because we don't live in
right,
in that world. So I don't know how that works. But having felt that kind of loss is a lot different than keeping something around, right?
right. It's I'm finding it hard to put it in words a little bit, and I've been thinking about it a lot because I reread the last 2 issues here a little while ago, earlier today, and I just felt like, again, I did. I don't want for John to have to go through the pain of losing his mother, but at the same time, I feel cheated in that that's where we were going, and then it was kind of like this swerve at the end, um, in cheating death, essentially, in a way that is very unnatural, just like the Ellie thing. Uh, Like, I don't know, it's such an unnatural thing. Stuff like this shouldn't end well. I guess is the other thing, is it shouldn't end well, and it does. So I don't know. He seemed like he very easily defeated the Star Shroud at the end, Veron, and he easily defeated the bad guys without working up a sweat. Is the way it felt.
going into this, he was already, wait a minute. No, well, he was ascended going into this, right?
Yes.
Right. So now he's double ascended.
Well, he's
Um,
ascended. He's got the Green Lantern ring, and he's got the Dark Star ring. And
Gotcha. So, I
yeah,
mean, by that measure, then, I mean, of course, everything's going to be easy peasy for him now, right? I mean, who's going to stand a chance against that? It's like,
it's things like that. And the same with the whole ascended thing. I had a problem with that. Is that the ultra powerful characters like that are hard to not only hard to write, but they're hard to rally behind. Like I wanted to rally behind John overcoming inevitable, unbeatable odds. That's the kind of story I like. So I felt like it was just like, oh, I just need to figure out how this works from the inside. Fixed, you're defeated.
well,
That's how it felt to me. It felt very rushed.
and it would feel that way to you because you're not personally invested in him like you are Hal Jordan, right?
Right. Like,
So it would have came across. I mean, if this would have been Hal Jordan, it would have been a whole different. We'd have a whole different narrative going on right now, right? Because
maybe. I mean, I would feel the same way. Like I wouldn't want Hal to just easily do something like that. Like defeating Necron or um defeating Necron is a good example. He couldn't do it by himself. He had to do a bunch of other things. Or when he defeated the first Lantern, he had to try to summon Necron and command the dead. At one
right,
point, he had to kill himself to do it. To go, things like that. It just seemed like it came easy. And
I
and
got you. I
you
got you.
know, but it is what it is. I think it again was good content. I found myself confused with Johnson tying in the whole Ogren thing. Like I know he did that in other books and other stories. I just found it a little convoluted for me to myself to follow. And maybe that's just age. Don't know.
Okay, but I will say this: there was one cool section in book 11,
Yeah.
and with him and Bila when he was rebuilding,
Hmm.
and I had the whole framework up of
Oh
all
yeah,
the
yeah,
very
yeah.
cool, very cool visuals.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. Montos. Um, that man can draw.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is art right there, and I mean that's like to the level of what Sharp was. Remember? I mean,
Oh
just to the
yeah.
depth of that. I mean, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Visually, this book was stunning.
Yeah.
I can't praise the artwork enough. I just found narratively, I thought it stumbled at the end. But there's been lots of stories like that. Like Godhead, that was a stumble at the end.
Yeah, it
You
kind of
know,
was. It was kind of a lead up was bigger than it was on that one.
right, right. Um, and I really had a hard time with the ending because I really I wanted the emotional. We were building emotionally towards a conclusion that we didn't get, and I felt like it was a little bit of a cheat. But
But it was
uh,
cool to see Shepard and what's his face guy together.
guy, yeah, just show up.
Yeah. Those guys
Yeah,
are cool together. I like them as a pairing.
right. And I don't know what happens with Shepard because we don't see that here. So maybe that'll be we know in the next issue of Green Lantern there's going to be a John Stewart backup. So maybe we'll see what happens with Shepard. I think for Shepard as a character, this was the circle. Like he's the character who makes John into the John that he knew when he left his universe. And that was the illusion that Johnson made. He was making a reference to Terminator, and you know how, and I can't remember the character's name, but the character from the future comes back. It's like Kyle Reese, maybe, comes back, and then he ends up meeting with Linda Hamilton's character, and they're the ones that give birth to,
Oh, that's right. I
you
remember
know,
that one. Yeah, right.
so it's almost like the same kind of thing where it's Shepard is realizing the future that he knows of in his own universe with Arjon, and he's the catalyst, even though he's seen the future, he's come from that future and molded the present into the future that he's lived, essentially. Uh,
I do want to get me a Dark Star ring now.
yeah, yeah. I thought that was kind of cool. I want to see where it goes.
I
Uh,
want to see more Dark Star content. I want to see them included in the Green Lantern universe more. I
yeah.
think they're a good. I think even with you have the aspect of the emotional spectrum, I think they're in that's another grouping that could be a good counterpart for a Lantern Corps, even for a movie aspect, you know. I mean, the Dark Stars have always been kind of neat.
Yeah.
And I wish they'd factor into the United Planets somehow, man. It'd be cool if they got involved at some
Yeah.
point.
I think the other thing about the resolution that bothers me is and we we know this as veteran comic readers. You see this all the time where is the fact that she's in the ring going to get picked up by on the next writer with the next writer? Is it going to be forgotten? You know, it's such an important change for John Stewart as a character that his mother is there and accessible. But if along comes a writer, I'll say after Jeremy Adams or whoever does something with John next, and they completely ignore it, what happens? You know, it kind of cheapens the ending. That's why I kind of wish there was resolution, and there
Yeah,
isn't.
it's kind of one of those threads that if you leave it if you kind of leave it dangling, it kind of takes the impact of what it would meant for the whole entire story.
Right. And it's so important to the character
Right.
that you don't want to see that happen. And I think that's kind of what the nagging thing is in the back of my mind is that is this ever gonna will there be any closure now? If it isn't Johnson, who knows?
Right.
So we'll see. Only time will tell, right?
I mean, that's usually the case with our poor selves.
And I don't want to sound like a downer about the book either, because it was good. It was good. I just think I got built in my mind an expectation of where we were going, and it wasn't that. We kind of like I was expecting us to zig and we zagged, but I found it a little hard to follow. I want to go back and reread this in its entirety in a single sitting, and maybe that will be better for me as a reading experience.
I
Uh,
mean, it usually is. I mean, I've often
yeah,
found I keep up with Green Lantern, but I've also often found when I wait for trades and I read it all the way through, I actually sit there and read it all the way through, you know, and I'll go like I went through all three volumes of Berserker. I couldn't keep up with it, so I kind of just said I'm gonna wait. And then I read all three volumes of Berserker. I was like, wow. And then I got, you know, and then he's got other stuff coming out, Keanu Reeves and Kent. But I sat and just read all those, and it was it was easier to read than it was
yeah.
just the monthlies when they were
It's
coming out.
easier, and maybe it's an age thing too. It's easier to keep track of the details when you're reading it in one or two sittings. I'm Chad Bokelman from the Lantern Cast recommended a series called Something is Killing the Children, and
I read the first volume of that.
I bought the first volume in hardcover and sat down and I started reading. And I couldn't put it down, and I read the entire thing in one night. And then I had to go out and buy the second volume because it was so good. But I think if I was reading in a monthly book, like that's what happened to me with Dark Knights of Steel. It happened to me with what's the other book? Darn it. I was reading it and then I dropped it. Nice House on the Lake. Both those
Yeah.
books I enjoyed them, but I fell off because I lost interest because I was waiting, either there was a delay or what have you, and I
Well,
wasn't following on a monthly basis. And I was like, eh.
it's also worth noting that there's a sequel out to that now too. The Nice House by the oh,
See,
the
outside
first
by
one, the sea, right, right.
Nice Out by the Sea. And I think there's a sequel to Dark Knights of Steel too.
Yeah, I'm reading that one now. That's all winter. It's
But
so good. But you're right. It is. I like it, and I want to keep up and follow it, but I feel like I'm gonna trip, and I'm not, and then I'm gonna be like, oh, and then I'm gonna have
yeah,
to go back and reread it. You know.
it's funny because I'm one of those readers who I want that weekly comic book experience, but then at the same time, for a reading experience, sometimes it's better not to have a single issue. It's better to let them pile up and then go and read them all. It's interesting. And again, I don't know if that's an age thing or what, but so I want to do that. Because I think the series deserves to be read that way because I think it's going to read better.
I wonder what is like the average like fan that reads comic books. I wonder if they like doing it monthly or if they like doing it in trades better.
It would be interesting. And I think as a reading experience, trades are probably better because you're getting the entire story. But there's something to be said for the weekly or the well, weekly, but the monthly experience. Like I enjoy the Jeremy Adams book, but I don't think that it's so heavy that you need it to be read in one big chunk. But I think stories that have maybe more depth to them or like in this case with all of this lore that you're not familiar with, it almost helps to have it in one chunk. So I think the series I owe the series a full read through in its entirety at once, and maybe my opinion will change a little bit. I'm not sure it'll change about the end, but maybe it'll change on the whole. Not that it's bad. I'm not saying it's bad. I think it's a good book, but to me, it just didn't stick the landing.
It was a good send off.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. And originally, it's interesting. Originally, when you and I talked with Johnson, he had said that DC wanted an ongoing book and that he couldn't stick around for all of it. And then it became a 12-issue series instead of a 6-issue series, which is what he pitched. And I kind of wonder if maybe it would have been better if it had been 6 issues, because maybe it would have been tighter.
I mean, I don't know. I think I would have taken away some of the stuff though at the same time. I'm kind of glad we got 12 out of it. At least it's a good for the next writer. At least it's a good grounding point for John Stewart moving forward, rather than just 6 issues and being a chunk. Because at least John Stewart owes. I mean, he even deserves more than 12 issues. I mean, he deserves an ongoing book. I mean, subsequently with another character, obviously Hal. But anyway, John Stewart needs to have an ongoing, because he needs to have a presence, right? I mean, if you're going to make him a Green Lantern presence in your films or your medias, which at some point he's going to be a factor in that anyway. Well, you got to have his presence felt in the book. So you can't just have a good run like this and then take him off the shelf and put him as a second tier character, though. So moving forward, they're going to have to do something with him.
Yeah. I don't know what that's going to be. Well, as always, time will tell, right?
Time will tell.
All right. Well, we have some listener feedback to get to. So why don't we take a break, and then my power ring can play back our first message.
Listen up, all you white circles. This is Drill Instructor Kilowog, and you're listening to the podcast of Oa. And don't you forget it, boozers.
Our first message is from War Lion, who has some comments about Carol Ferris. Transmitting in 3, 2, 1.
Great episode as always. I just wanted to say that Carol exploring being a hero doesn't, in my opinion, feel out of character or contradictory to continuity at all when you give it a deeper look. Whenever Carol wore the ring, she always had to do so to save Hal, then she'd lock it away, and the one time she didn't do that was in Justin Jordan's New Guardians, but that version of her was obsessed with keeping the ring on her no matter the cost, which is why she played a hero and forced herself to love Kyle. At least that's what I remember from the run. I read it a long time ago, so my memories might not be 100% accurate. Something to wonder about absolute power is that in the build-up to it, Josh Williamson revealed in Green Arrow that she allied herself with Convergence Parallax, but that's yet to come up in the event, and I wonder if it'll have anything to do with the Green Lantern titles at all, especially with 0 30th anniversary special coming up and the entities always being the MacGuffin that fix anything wrong with the Spectrum, like when Ion restarted the GL battery or what happened in Lights Out.
We're Lion, great to hear from you as always. And the whole thing with Carol, it's interesting. You made reference to the New Guardians run, and she had some experiences, but you're right. Her experiences were not the traditional superhero ones, right? She was on a journey with Kyle. It just makes me hard to even say that. The whole thing with Carol and Kyle was so cringy, but she was, she wasn't really doing the superhero shtick. So yeah, I can get it. She's not familiar with that. And as we're seeing in Absolute Power, she's kind of starting to experience some of these things and getting more of a close-up introspective view of the superhero community. I mean, there was a scene where she was riding, I think, in a vehicle with the JSA, and she was making some internal reflection about these people sacrificing things and what it took, and how heroic it is to see people willing to throw their lives on the line for their greater good. And you wonder if when she and Hal are reunited, will she see him in a different way? That'll be interesting to me to see. If you get a chance, let us know what issue of Green Arrow that took up that your comment about basically Waller aligning herself with Convergence Parallax. Let me know what issue that was. I picked up issue 3 and 4, and I didn't get that out of it, but maybe I'm missing it. But let me know if you can recall what issue that was, it'd be interesting to go back and read it because it may be an issue I missed because I haven't been picking up that series as a whole. And you're right. It'd be interesting to see, we talked a little bit earlier about the 0 Hour 30th anniversary special. We do see that Parallax is back, not Parallax Hal, but Parallax the entity. So I don't know where it's all going. It's kind of exciting, but at the same time, I'm worried that they're just going to drop the ball. So it'll be I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, there's things that are sometimes you mentioned the ion thing and the whole thing with Lights Out. Ugh, Lights Out was awful. Love Rubber Venditti, but that was. Ugh. But we'll see where it all goes. I'm hoping it goes somewhere. I guess that's the thing is I'm trusting that Snyder and Williamson and these guys have an end game in mind. I mean, we see now that the Parallax entity is back. Apparently, Hal's Parallax is doing something. And there's more to be done there too. We'll see. I just assumed the Hal's Parallax thing be gone, but we'll see. If there's something interesting to say with it, then we'll see. Phil, what about you?
I mean, I'm the same way. I mean, I want to see Parallax again. But I want to see. I'd like to see Hal as Parallax. I actually enjoyed his character as Parallax. Actually, I'm partial to when he was Spectre too, though. So probably one of the minorities that really liked him as a Spectre. But be that as it may, I kind of like when he puts on that other role. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, he's a great Green Lantern, the greatest Green Lantern in my opinion. But when he picks up those other mantles, like when he's Parallax, I feel like he can control it better. Aspects of it
Yeah.
better than he used to. At least he's shown that over time. So but I still like it, and I like the way the costume's drawn. It's just cool.
It is a good looking costume.
As far as as far as Carol goes, I mean, I just wish they'd make a decision on their relationship status and just go full-fledged heroes with each other. There's no wrong in that. I mean, I don't know what everybody's waiting around for, right?
Right.
They're both their rings are on their fingers right now. So, I mean,
They just don't have a ring on the other hand. That's all.
they just don't have the wedding ring. That's all. I mean, yeah. That's kind of the crux of it, though. I'm looking forward to where this is going to go after. I kind of wish Absolute Power was not going on, so I could see where Green Lantern's going to go following his 12 issues on his own and not be hinged to another book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I hope the other book doesn't anchor it out when it moves forward after it.
I think now that we've got Night Terrors done and this is about ready to be wrapped up, I hope that's it for a while and just let the Green Lantern book tell its stories.
Yeah, I'm kind of over big events, I mean, they're cool, don't get me wrong, but why? And why so many?
Yeah, we'll see. I'm interested to see where the absolute universe goes and where the all-in stuff goes and how things unfold. I think it's an interesting time to be a DC fan to see where this is all going to lead. I mean, we have little teases and nuggets of things. I kind of wanted to hurry up and get here so the dust can settle and we can get back to just reading books without all these things kind of hanging in the air.
Agreed.
But all right, well, Powering, why don't you play us our next message?
The next message is from JP Roca. Transmitting in 3, 2, 1.
Cover Kong.
Okay, JP, cover Kong. Yeah, we're gonna get on that. Now, cover Kong, he could have meant the comic book cover Kong with the Green Lantern, right? Which, by the way, if that's what you meant, JP, that was an awesome, awesome, awesome cover. Myron's got a copy of it. I got a copy of it.
Yeah.
I loved it. It's so sweet. I actually want to get a big, gigantic blow up picture of that in my life someday.
Yeah,
but
that was really nice.
Yeah. There's your cover, Kong, JP. Outside of that, we are going to cover the next. I guess not the next recording because we're going to have to cover the new GL issue. But after that, we'll do the 7 issues of Kong and Godzilla and the Justice League.
Definitely. That's a plan. And we have to be sure we're wearing, I'm going to be wearing a Godzilla shirt.
I got my Kong shirt.
Yeah, we're wearing your Kong shirt. And because I'm Team Godzilla all the way.
So is the wife though, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We just got
play sides. Denise just kind of just remains neutral.
She's neutral. I just want a good story. Now, we just got Godzilla -1 from Toho because it hasn't been released over here in this country yet. But in Japan, they released. Well, I guess it's available on streaming platforms, but the physical media version isn't out yet. I don't think it comes out until like November. But I got from Toho the Japanese release because it's got Godzilla. I think it's got Godzilla -1 in 4K, and then it's got Godzilla -1 in Blu-ray, and then it's got Godzilla -1 minus color in Blu-ray. All dubbed. The only with subtitles, not dubbed. The only downside is the bonus disc of goodies is all in Japanese with no subtitles in it whatsoever. Only downside.
You better get the cracking on your Japanese, pal.
I've gotta start learning it, man. But great movie. But we will definitely be covering that, JP, because it was fun.
It's too good not to. That would make for a cool animated,
Yeah, it would be. Wouldn't it be kind of cool? That
Yeah,
could be
to watch
neat.
that. I'd like to see it like a Planet of the Apes kind of tie in at some point too. I think that'd be kind of neat.
Just not the one that they did in the comics. 'Cause
No.
that one wasn't so hot.
What about the Star Trek GL?
That
crossover?
was good. I really liked that crossover. That was fun.
At least you like that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, come on. I mean, you see Hal Jordan sitting in the center seat on the Enterprise.
Fair
I
enough.
mean,
Chris Pine. Chris Pine.
Chris Pine, right?
Foreshadow. There it is.
All right, Power Ring. Why don't you tell everybody how they can become a part of the show?
You can become a part of the show by leaving a message up to 1 minute long on our voicemail line. Call us at 406-POD-OA. That's 406-763-6362. You can also email us at podcast@blogofoa.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Well, everybody, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Podcast of Oa. We've had a great time talking about some Green Lantern stuff. Try to keep the rant down to a low simmer.
Off mic, before this started off mic, Myron did say that he was like, all right, we got to get ready to talk about the casting thing. And I had to be sure. I was like, I know we're family friendly but we can be full throated, right? He's like, oh yeah, blah, 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 this and that. Well, I got news for you. That was a lame full throated, sir. You should have been full on.
All right. It's bull crap. No,
but this is just two old guys doing a podcast, right? They're not casting us as Hal Jordan.
Well, we're in the bracket range. Either one of us could be Hal Jordan.
I mean, I think they should pick Chad Bokelman. He'd be a good Hal Jordan.
All right, friends. Well, we will be back in a couple weeks talking more about Green Lantern stuff. And who knows, maybe by then we'll know who's going to be playing Hal Jordan and John Stewart in Lanterns. And then we'll really have something factual to talk about.
Right.
But until next time, treat each other well, keep that power ring charged, and make every day your brightest day. Take care, everybody. Thanks so much for watching this Green Lantern video from the blog of Oa. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find even more great Green Lantern videos, reviews, podcasts, and more at our main website, www.blogofoa.com. So until next time, keep your power ring charged and make every day your brightest day.